Imagine this. You're 12 years old. You think life is about games, food, and maybe getting into trouble with your friends. But suddenly, you're taken away from your family, dragged into a palace that looks like a dream on the outside and turns into a nightmare on the inside. Welcome to the hidden world of the Ottoman male concubines, a world where freedom didn't exist, where boys were groomed, controlled, and silenced. But here's the scary part. This wasn't some rare, secret experiment. No, this was normal, accepted, routine. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to take you into that world, step by step, and show you the horrific things that were not only happening, but were considered perfectly acceptable. No cliffhanger tone. So buckle up, because once you see what life was like inside the Ottoman harem, you'll never look at those beautiful palaces the same way again. Let's start with the harem itself. Now, when you hear harem, you probably picture luxury, silks, and maybe something out of a Netflix drama. But reality check, it wasn't just women. Young boys were also part of this system. The harem wasn't simply about pleasure. It was a political machine, a place where loyalty was manufactured, where human beings became tools of empire. Inside those palace walls, rules controlled every breath. Status determined if you lived in comfort or fear. And trust me, fear was the default setting. Humorous interrupt. And before you imagine a bunch of teenagers chilling like it's summer camp, nope, this wasn't camp. This was survival. Now, how did boys end up here? They didn't volunteer. Many were captives from wars or victims of the Devshirme system, where Christian boys were taken from their families to serve the empire. They were chosen based on looks, age, and potential. Imagine standing in front of stern men who were basically inspecting you like livestock. That was your job interview. Fail it, you might be sent to hard labor. Pass it, you're locked inside the harem. Cliffhanger. Either way, your childhood ended right there. Once inside, life wasn't free. It was programmed. Boys learned languages, etiquette, strict obedience. Every move was watched. Privacy? Gone. The goal was simple. Break individuality. Make you loyal to the palace above all else. And if you resisted, punishments were brutal. Anything from flogging to starvation. The harem was less a school, more a prison camp dressed in silk curtains. Pattern interrupt. Think boarding school. But if detention meant physical pain, not just missing recess, here's where it gets darker. Concubines lived under constant surveillance. Days were repetitive. Serving, waiting, obeying. Nights were filled with anxiety. Who would be called? Who would be punished? Who would simply vanish? Jealousy and competition poisoned relationships. Friendships? Risky. Trust? Dangerous. One wrong word and you could be reported. And don't be fooled by the fancy food or marble floors, because what's a golden cage still called? A cage. Cliffhanger. But here's the real horror. It wasn't just about rules. It was about ownership. Now, not all concubines remained powerless. A few rose in influence, manipulating politics, becoming close to sultans. But that success came with enormous risk. Fall out of favor, you could be banished, tortured, or quietly erased from history. Power in the harem was like holding a live grenade. It could elevate you or blow your life apart. Cliffhanger. And for most boys, the grenade always exploded. So why don't we hear much about male concubines? The answer is both simple and heartbreaking. History, after all, is usually written by those in power. The sultans, the court officials, the chroniclers who wanted to glorify the empire, not expose its darkest truths. The boys who lived inside the harem rarely left behind their own words, and even if they did, those voices were buried under layers of shame, secrecy, and deliberate erasure. What we know today comes in fragments, a line hidden in an archive, a passing reference in a traveler's memoir, a rumor whispered by outsiders who caught a glimpse of palace life. But if a few fragments survived, imagine how many stories were completely lost. Every boy had a name, a family, dreams, and fears. Yet most of them were reduced to shadows in history, existing only as statistics or footnotes. This silence itself is horrific because it denies them dignity even after death. To be forgotten is a second kind of imprisonment. By remembering and speaking about them now, we give back a little of the humanity that was stolen. Their silence, in the end, tells us as much as their suffering ever could. So, what do we make of this? The Ottoman Empire is celebrated in history books for its military victories, its breathtaking architecture, and its glittering culture. Tourists today still walk through palaces and marvel at their domes, mosaics, and gardens. And yes, those things are worth remembering. But behind all of that grandeur was a darker reality. A hidden world of children who had no say in their lives. Boys taken from their homes, stripped of their childhood, molded into property, and then silenced by the very system that controlled them. We rarely hear about these boys because history wasn't written for them. It was written for sultans, viziers, and court officials. Their achievements were carved into stone, while the pain of concubines remained invisible. That silence was not an accident. It was deliberate. The empire wanted to be remembered for power and beauty, not for the human cost that fueled it. And here's the bigger truth. Whenever we glorify empires without looking at their victims, we repeat the same mistake. If we only admire the palaces, the art, the armies, we risk ignoring the people crushed beneath those achievements. The lives of concubines remind us that freedom is fragile, something that can be stolen in an instant. Human dignity is priceless, but once lost, it is nearly impossible to reclaim. This silence is not just a historical detail, it's a warning. If we don't listen to the forgotten voices of the past, we allow power to erase suffering again and again. Think about it. For every empire that left monuments and palaces, there were countless individuals who left nothing because they were never allowed to. Their voices were drowned out, their names erased, their humanity reduced to footnotes or whispers in dusty archives. And maybe that's the real horror. To suffer is one thing, to be forgotten is another. To have your story deliberately erased means you die twice, once in body and once in memory. That's why telling these stories matters. Speaking them aloud is a way of giving back a little dignity to people who had none. It's a way of reminding ourselves that no empire, no matter how glorious, was built without victims. And it's a way of making sure we don't repeat the same horrors in different forms today. Humorous reset. And hey, if you thought high school was tough, at least you didn't have palace guards breathing down your neck every second. No exams could ever beat that level of stress. So the next time you see a photo of Topkapi Palace or hear about the glory of the Ottoman court, remember that beauty often hides pain. And remember that history isn't just about the powerful. It's about the powerless too. The silence of the concubines still echoes, and it's up to us to hear it. If this story shocked you, and you want to see how power can destroy or build, let me take you to something very different, but just as fascinating: the power of compounding. Yep, money this time, not empires. Trust me, it'll change how you think about your own future. Click the end screen video now, and I'll see you there.